What's up, Duke fans? Welcome to the Devil's Den podcast. I'm your host, Josh Smith, joined by my co-host, Raul and Shu. Got some guests with us today. So we have John Watson with the Devil's Den, and we're also happy to welcome back Duke men's basketball head coach, Jon Scheyer. John, this is your third time on the pod, so you're flirting with family territory again here. We appreciate you. We got some stuff to get into. Obviously, historic season, just off the top here. One of the most dominant seasons we've seen at Duke in probably about 30 years. Finished 35-4, 22-1 against the ACC, won both the regular season and the tournament title here. Had the number one offense, number one defense, finished number one in KenPom. All the accolades come in. Coach, before we get into all that, though, first off, it's been a hell of an offseason for y'all. The last couple months here have been pretty hectic. How you doing? How you holding up? How's things looking like for you now?
Well, first, thanks for having me back on. All right. If I'm just entering family territory, how many times does it take to actually be in the family? That's what I want to know.
It is three. So you're officially in. If you would like.
All right, there we go. I love it. Shu's got the best shirt.
Yeah.
Many of you guys. All right, just so you know, those that are watching or listening, hopefully they know what that is. But I would just tell you, for me, it's been probably the most fascinating year when you combine this last season that we had and then going into this next season. I couldn't be more excited about this upcoming season. But at the same time, as you reflect from this past season, incredibly proud of what we've done, all the numbers you mentioned, and then still there's a part of every day that goes by for me that I think about the way the season ended. And I'm just being real. I think that's part of it as a competitor. And so how do you continue to move forward and use that in the right way? You can't change it. But it also, not that define what that group did this past season, because those guys, man, in so many different ways, I thought they just set the standard for what Duke basketball is all about. They were all about the right stuff. To see it translate into 5 guys being drafted, 3 guys in the top 10. How cool is that, right? And it gives us a great base to build from this upcoming season. But I think for me, you're dealing with lots of different emotions. You're dealing with great hunger, and also the fact that these guys that are coming back and then coming in are also, they're ready to go in their own right. It's been really exciting for me to coach these guys.
For sure. I mean, I think for us, we talked about it. So, we're fans first and foremost is how we started this thing. And for us, last year was probably my favorite team as an adult. It's hard to get to that space. It's hard to overcome the nostalgia of childhood. I think of, 98, 99, 01, your group in 2010 as a college kid. But last year, there was just something special about it. And I don't want to get too kind of into it here with you, but it seemed like there was something intentional, even going back to when we spoke with you last offseason, just the way the team moved, some of the ways that you approached leadership with captaincy. It just felt like the aura around that particular team was a bit different. And now you have to move so quickly on. What does that look like? Wanting to just take that and we wanted to watch you again the next day. I woke up after the Houston game thinking all right, that's fine. We'll get them. We're ready to go. And then it settles of oh, this is it. How do you just jump right into this next team, which is going to look a lot different? How do you sift through what do I take from last year and what do I kind of have to set aside and appreciate, but it's not going to work for this group?
Well, I think it's hard for me to talk about myself, but I think the best job that I've done as head coach is actually post Houston game over the next 2 months, and the job that the staff did, particularly Emmanuel and Chris, with me, Rachel, our internal staff, everybody that's here to solidify the roster. I mean, look, we're playing Saturday night. We feel we're a minute away from playing a national championship game and we lose. I'm having meetings Monday morning, with our guys coming back. That process is starting literally that quickly. And so to be able to move on that quickly, you have to do it as a head coach. You have to do it to make sure we have the best team possible the following season, but also allowing yourself to feel, allowing yourself to take away what you need to. It's just what happened the year before, losing the Elite Eight to NC State. And so the decisions were made based on that heartbreak, based on what didn't go right. I think a lot of what we learned this past season is what did go right, what we have to double down on. But then obviously that you can't just say, all right, we're going to do the same thing. You have to do it with a different group and reshape it a certain way. So clearly, um, we've doubled down on the positional size. Clearly, we've doubled down on um, the when you look at the versatility, and the
Mhm.
skill level on this team, right? And then, for us, it was going to be a little bit of a different group. So, end of the day, do I wish we had a little bit more experience? Yes. But to me, when you look at the talent, the ability, the buy-in of the guys we brought in, uh, there was no question way more worth it than just going for experience. And the transfer portal is turning into a different thing each year
Mhm.
as well. So anyway, for me, I'm really proud of this period of time with the staff and what they've done and how we've been able to turn the page, continue to move this thing forward. And I'm really proud of where we landed with this group.
You mentioned that positional size. Another thing that we've kind of picked up on, Raul mentioned it too. I think there was a lot of parallels to like just in terms of like what the roster might look like or how the roster might play to 2024 Boston Celtics. But Raul mentioned up too. He was like, you got some 25 Pacers looks in there, like some almost 2014 Spurs looks in terms of the amount of people on the court that can be like positive decision makers. I mean, last year you have like Sion, Tyrese, and Khan all out there, all capable. Coop, obviously, all capable of kind of being that quick decision maker. Is that something that is going to be added to that positional kind of size? Because this season you bring in a guy like Dame, and obviously some of the guys already on the roster, Caleb, Isaiah. Is that something that pops to you of being able to have multiple guys? I know when you played here, your team in 2010, there wasn't really, you, Nolan, Kyle. It's just us, right? And everyone's able to kind
Yeah,
of operate. Is that something that you prioritize?
100%. I mean, you look at our team from last year, we had an historic offensive season, but I think the thing that goes under the radar, we are top 15 in the country out of 360 plus teams in taking care of the ball. And so when you're valuing the ball, getting shots up on the rim, we're a good offensive rebounding team, not great, but we're a good offensive rebounding team. It allows you for second chance points. And then we had amazing shot selection because you had guys that valued the ball and then valued shots. And so we were really efficient and got great looks. And so for us, that's something we've really doubled down on because the way that we play, it's not where I want them. We're we have structured randomness. For us, and this summer has been understanding reads you can make, but also they always have the opportunity based on what the defense is doing or how they're playing. Our guys have the ability to break that off and to cut space, screen, make plays from there. But you need five guys on the floor that can think together, that can talk, execute, and that's where we got to a point by the end of last season. It was clicking. It was beautiful. Don't forget, early in the year, it was rough in moments because it wasn't just so structured. This is exactly what we're doing. It takes some time to understand the reads, understand the flow of how we're going to play. So that's something I would love to speed that process up. But the most important thing is to get to that point by the end of the season, which we did.
What kind of advantages does that give you as an offense having those multiple decision makers? Because it's a very different, system than like say to go way back when Bobby Hurley ran the team, right? And everything's going through him. He's getting 8 assists a game. Having like multiple guys that are getting 2 or 3 assists can kind of put it on the floor, attack. Is that just something that makes you less predictable and harder to defend, or how do you see that?
Yeah, I think it allows us to attack matchups more, which is a big thing. Last year we really looked to exploit different matchups that we would have, and no matter what with that group we could put out there, we felt like there was an opportunity to attack a matchup. Really, most games, if not all games. Uh, excuse me. So that's one, and then two, it's the opportunity where a guy doesn't feel like they have to do too much. Where they're allowed to play, where they have the ability to play to their strengths more, even if it's Cooper, last year, just to play to his strengths, knowing that He's got Tyrese, he's got Sion, he's got Khan, he's got Isaiah, he's got Caleb. Where it's some of that pressure is taken off, and that's what I think led to such a great percentage of us taking care of the ball, and all the other offensive stats that were mentioned earlier. So to me, that's the luxury that multiple ball handlers, multiple decision makers, and by the way, an underrated thing for us, and especially for this year, but Pat and Malik being so ball friendly as guys who are, they're fives technically, or they're playing that position for us, but they're two of our best passers. And so the ability to hit them and know that they're going to make good decisions, for Pat to have positive assisted turnovers, and I mean that's a huge plus for our team.
And Cam Boozer too, right? Great passer from what I've seen.
No, he's of course, yes.
Yeah, that was actually a question we have coming up about, running stuff through the post. So I'm sure we'll get to that in a second. But Josh, I don't know if you want to jump back in. But.
Yeah, I mean, we'll spoil it a little bit. It might be the best passing like Duke front court I've ever seen on paper, in just terms of the skill set and what we can get into. Coach, I want to shift a little bit and move into the offseason, but you did mention something just about the evolution of the offense. And I'm sure you remember I was watching the post-game stuff after the game against Illinois. And Brad Underwood comes out, and I think, I'm not a coach, but if I was, one of the best compliments I could get is if another coach is like, yeah, they're just picking on us. Like, there's not a whole lot I can do out there on certain matchups. And the offense got to a point to where it didn't matter who came in. There were certain sets that we were just ready to get guys go. Isaiah comes in, we're going to look at some flare stuff. Can we hit that gravity? You got Big Pat coming in. Can we get some DHO? Can we get downhill? You might run some con into the coop in the middle, and then you got come on kind of slot. There was just so many things that seemed to just roll into each other. How do you get that? Like, how do you go from Kansas, from Kentucky earlier in the year with a young group, to not just the number one offense, but like an historic number one offense? Like, what does that look like in that day-to-day grind?
Well, first, I give our guys a ton of credit. I mean, you think about those moments. I mean, our guys, after that Kentucky and Kansas game, our guys were pissed. They were down. And the ability to feel that way, but then also to have the humility to come back and learn from it and to get better. That has to come from within. That's not something a coach can just make them do. So it starts with their attitudes. It starts with their hunger, and them wanting to learn. I think for us as a staff, the thing that I found, especially as a younger coach, you want to do. There's a lot of really good ways you can play basketball. There's a lot of really good actions, a lot of really good sets you can run, and sometimes I think less is more. And we got really good at running less last year. And I thought that gave us a great base to play from. We understood the different coverages defenses could play and what they were trying to take away and how we could expose that. And so for us, it wasn't about adding all the time, or although we tweaked, really something each game. We would have a couple tweaks each game, but it wasn't about adding something totally new. So I thought by the end of the season, our guys were really comfortable. They were really sharp in what we were doing, and that led to some beautiful, beautiful basketball, man. Just beautiful connecting plays with the combination of on ball and off ball. And that's, I think, the key for me. After that NC State game, I felt like we needed some more off ball, not just on ball stuff, which helped.
I got a question about what you just said about how it had to come from within. The guys were pissed off and that kind of thing. How does that happen this year? Because it seemed like last year Cooper was kind of like the defining personality. Con was there, but it seemed like the team took Cooper's personality as far as in the macro sense. How does it happen this year with basically a new starting five, new rotation, a lot of new guys? I mean, is that organic? Is there a guy you're kind of targeting going, you're going to be the leader, or how does that work?
Well, I think it's some of it definitely has to happen in an organic way. And then some of it we're trying to build right now. I think just when the hardest adjustment to me, I don't care if you're Cooper, I don't care if you're Cam Boozer, I don't care if you're any of our freshmen. I mean, right? Like going from college, from high school to college, the value of every possession just is heightened 10x than high school. Obviously, you have the longer game, but then the margin of error and the value of every shot, the value of getting the ball. And I think that's just something we have to learn. I've seen, especially over the last week with our team this summer, I've seen a great connectivity. The guys we have coming back aren't necessarily the most outspoken, but the job that Malik has done, talking with our guys, Caleb, talking, Isaiah has unique energy that you guys know that he's brought to the table. I would say, Cam and Nick are the loudest, of our freshmen. And then, Dame's played high level, and, Caden has won as much as anybody, in high school and knows what it takes. And, Sebastian is figuring his way out too, which is great. Darren's made a jump. So I think it's got to come collectively. But then, of course, you always need leadership in those moments. And I don't think I can say today, man, here's exactly who we're going to, or here's exactly what's going to happen, because it's July, whatever it is. I don't know my days anymore. It's whatever.
Yep.
It's July 28th. We gotta go through some stuff to really know, how that's going to take shape during the season.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about Dame, actually. I don't want to read too much into a couple minutes of clips that, Duke Planners put out. But yeah, we can talk about that for 3 hours. So just from what I've seen, there's an intensity there to him. A lot of screaming in those clips, and that can be a good thing to kind of fire up the team. What do you think he's bringing from his international experience playing against former NBA players? A lot of them, in fact.
Well, I played in the ACB. I played in that league that Dame was playing in. I can't believe as an 18-year-old, he practiced against those guys every day and played against them. I'm just telling you guys, it's high level. And so I think that gave him a good understanding of how to play through, against more physical players. But Dame has had a great attitude. I think he has these unique skills and talent. He just has to figure out how to transfer that over to becoming a really good college basketball player right away. He can be an elite defender. I mean, a special defender. He has the ability to shoot. He has the ability to play make. He has really good feel. He just needs to figure out how to put it all together in a new environment for the first time. So I think that helps him playing with Barcelona and having to figure it out at 18 years old or 17 on his own. I think it's prepared him to have really good maturity to learn. He's hard on himself. We love coaching Dame. He's hard on himself, which is good. But we got to help him find his game.
Something you mentioned, Coach, is about kind of being able to go through things. And like last season, it was like a little bit of a shift that you spoke of like, I want guys to go through it together. Like we got to be really intentional about like creating this adversity collectively versus having guys do more individual stuff. One of the individual guys that I think is worth highlighting, especially in this like day and age of college basketball, is to go through things and then to come out on the other side together. Speaking of a guy like Caleb Foster, who probably didn't have quite the individual season that maybe he had envisioned, in today's landscape, there's choices for you, for the staff, for Duke, for Caleb. And to go through that type of experience and then to kind of double down on each other and like recommit, for us, like I gotta get chills thinking about it. Like that's like part of like what being a college basketball fan is about, is kind of seeing that story. What has that kind of relationship and process been like for you?
I couldn't be more proud of Caleb. And this isn't always about where it's smooth sailing. And, it's great when you have guys that come in and one and done. And we just saw 3 of them, this past year do what they did, and Cooper, Khan, and Kaman, which is amazing. And they were great. But look, I love the journey that I just went through with Tyrese, right? I mean, going through 3 years together and coming out on the other side, you don't think there's adversity, or you don't think there's moments where he's pissed at me, or trying to get him to do something. That's part of a real relationship. And so just like I mentioned with Tyrese, here we are with Caleb going into year 3. And I think in a lot of respects, you actually can have a deeper relationship and a better season having gone through that. Now, it's not fun going through it. I'm not suggesting that's what we should do or what Caleb would want to have happen. But I think when you start from that place of that stronger commitment, doubling down 2 years in a row, 3 years really it's 4 years of doubling down, and because there's choices, not just in the transfer portal, there's choices after you commit in high school. And that's something every step of the way, Caleb has been completely committed. And I think it's going to transfer over to having a great season and great success for our team as well.
And I think the last guy I wanted to, just because I think the conversation, and maybe they're not, but to me in my head, you mentioned Isaiah and what Slim brought as just this, like, not just a flamethrower on the court, but just emotionality and just seeing him on the sidelines getting fired up. Now coming into year 2, I think there's probably for you all, I'm sure, maybe even higher than ours, there's an expectation of like, okay, are we really ready for prime time? And for me, all I've been chewing on is kind of what is that going to look like? Like, how do you take that, expand it? It's going to look so much different and maybe a predicted larger role or more minutes or whatever that comes down to. What does that offseason kind of conversation and vision look like between you and Slim? I know you've talked about it already a little bit, the options that he's had and the potential here. But kind of what's that summer looked like so far?
Well, for me, it's been, I've had some of the best conversations I've ever had with Slim. It's been just laying out exactly where I feel he's at, exactly what we have to do, exactly what I feel he has to do. And, he's got a unique weapon, right? We all know that. He's got a special weapon with his ability to shoot and the ability to score. But finding that consistency, like he did at the end of last season, we inserted him in the starting lineup in the ACC tournament. There was an easy decision for me, to be frank, because of how he was competing on the defensive end. He was rebounding more, knowing personnel, knowing scouting reports, all of that stuff. He came a long way, man, a long way. And I'm really proud of that growth. Now he has a chance of understanding what it takes, understanding of going through a season, just to do that consistently and all the time. And if he does that, in addition to his gifts and talents that he has with the shooting the ball and scoring, I think he'll show you he can pass and do some other things as well. But the clip against North Carolina in the ACC tournament where he dives on the floor. First of all, he gets a steal. He anticipates the steal. Then he dives on the floor for a loose ball. That's a Slim I want to see all the time. If he's that way, are you kidding me? Like, he can be right there with one of the best players in the country. He can be a guy that's everything else will happen just from that mindset, that effort, that attitude. And he's embraced it. Like, I give him so much credit for what he's done in this offseason with the conversations we've had. But now comes the hard work. We got to put in the work. We got to stick with it. I got to help him in that. But I'm really excited for this year for him.
I'm glad you mentioned the play in the ACC tournament. That's probably my favorite play of the year. That right up there with Coop's defense on Sears against Alabama. That was pretty special to watch. But him and Khan both firing each other
the
off.
Big Pat. He threw a nice alley
coming
the
off.
Big Pat.
Yeah, you saw Slim running some DHO stuff late in the year. You saw him kind of getting downhill, maybe looking to facilitate a little bit. Okay. Let's shift into the current team. I think, Coach, the most impressive part about all of this that you're talking about is it's literally these conversations are happening 48 hours after you just get your heart ripped out a little bit, right? And like all of this just has to happen so fast. Could you talk just very briefly just about like the infrastructure and the support that maybe you have and that Duke has done, and that obviously there's been a lot of staff turnover as well. Could you talk about kind of like your team behind the scenes very briefly?
Yeah, well, look, the first thing that I'm thankful for is having infrastructure and staff who have been here for a long period of time, and there's great value to that. That's something that I've really tried to, lean into, because for me, obviously I've been a part of the program now. It's crazy. I came in almost 20 years ago, at this point, it's hard for me to believe. My first time visiting was 21 years ago, 22 years ago, maybe. It's hard for me to believe. But you think about Dave Bradley. You think about the fact that who happens to be in the room with me, by the way. But still, Dave, the institutional knowledge that he has, everything that he's brought to our program, and it's not just in a job description, right? It's just there's a feel that you have with this program, understanding what it takes, understanding what a Duke basketball player looks like, the support that he needs. You think about up until this year, we had our training staff, Coach Will retired, which I didn't want him to, but he did. We had Coach Will, Jose Fonseca, Nick Potter. They've been a team for 20 plus years. And so that's been an incredible thing. You think about, I can go down the list in our program, but so I start there. And then what's happened is the job descriptions or the needs have changed with a staff now, because you're allowed five people on the road now, not just three. So that changes. You're allowed 5 coaches on the floor, not just 3. How you balance that, I don't think it's so simple where just, all right, everybody coaches, everybody recruits. I think there needs to be some balance. I try to be really patient with that. But I do know the additions we brought in this offseason, Evan Brads, man, is coaching the NBA is incredibly polished, smart, hungry to do everything. He's been a great addition. And then the fact of bringing Tyler Thornton back home and having his voice, his energy, his knowledge of our program and knowledge with how he's developed as a coach, they've been big assets to us. And then we've been fortunate, a guy behind the scenes in Jace McCain, who's been a GA for us, but to keep him on staff, he's been terrific. So I think for us, my goal has been we're the most well-run, best staff in the country, from that support staff, that's coaching staff, that's everybody. We have a lot of new roles. We have to get to know each other again. But the people that are in our program are top-notch.
What were your conversations with Evan Brads like before he joined the staff? I mean, it's not like he's coming from some, no-name, smaller position, right? He's coming from the Utah Jazz and Boston Celtics and all that. So, what was your kind of pitch to him, I guess?
Evan was shocked, when I reached out to him. He was shocked. And, I just had felt, talk about balance of a staff, and I've wanted to continue to just modernize everything we're doing as much as possible. You mentioned, you think about, this is a perfect example. Celtics 2 years ago win the whole thing. Everybody's talking about what with the Celtics? All the spacing, all the threes they're shooting, right? Then you flash forward a year. What's everybody talking about now? The Thunder, the Pacers, their aggressiveness on defense, picking up pressure.
Yep.
So my point is, in saying that, the game continues to evolve. I mean, every year there's something different that's happening. And so for me, I really want to hire somebody from the NBA, but only if it was the right fit. It had to be the right fit. And I kept hearing about his name, and it had to be somebody that was in a position of still on the upswing. You're not going to get an NBA head coach to come here. I can't call Quinn Snyder and say, hey, Q, he's a little bit, he's surpassed that, to say the least. But I'll call him for advice from time to time. But anyway, I kept hearing about Brad's, and after talking with him, I just thought there's a great, we vibe very well with how we view the game, where he's at in his career. The opportunity to come to Duke was very meaningful for him. And then, Will Hardy's a good friend of mine. Talking to Will was incredible with Brad's and just giving me some perspective there. So anyway, I thought his experience combined with the opportunity here and what we needed, I thought it was a perfect fit.
How quick did Tyler give you an answer? Because I had a chance to speak with him in the concourse in San Antonio, the Houston game, and I just kind of threw it out like, hey, what would you do if, we gave you the ring? And he was like, oh man, I'd jump at it. So just curious, like, did you get it out? And he was like, immediately, yeah, I'm there.
He was awesome, man. That's kind of, I mean, we had several conversations along the way, but same thing. Kenny Blakeney, Kenny was incredible supporting Tyler. He gave him that opportunity when he was young without any coaching experience, and he's grown so much there. And once I said to Tyler, I said, all right, let's do this, man. You ready? And he was there and ready to go literally the next day, whatever was needed. Still haven't talked to his mom. I want to see his mom in person because I know his family. I know his mom and dad are excited, and for his family to move back here is a special thing. But yeah, he was excited, ready to go.
Yeah, we're stoked to get TT back. We can talk a little bit about the current group here coming in, but one thing, Coach, that we wanted to talk about is kind of like what scouting would look like in the modern kind of landscape here. I think, a part of my head is just the old guy at the baseball field, right? Just like listening and watching. And I know analytics is such a big part of it, but I like to think that there's still just like an eye for the game. And what we've seen just in 3 years is that there is some sort of intentional, like, who is on the coming up. And it's not just for the staff. I'm looking at a guy like Flip, who obviously I know where he ended. But when you guys started getting involved and were really kind of offering the scholarship, like he wasn't quite there yet. I look at a guy like Jared McCain, who obviously was highly rated, but I don't think we were thinking rookie of the year level in the NBA, right? When you all reached out.
Con Knipple as well.
Con Knipple,
going
Cedric
forth in the
Coward.
draft.
Yeah, Cedric Coward being the most recent of that. What are you kind of looking at for like when you're scouting talent, and like how do you keep kind of finding, I don't want to call them diamonds in the rough that end up 5 stars here, but how do you keep kind of looking for who's going to pop? Where does this project?
Well, to your point, I think no matter what, you have to make decisions. Like you choose on guys at the end of the day, right? And so regardless of their ranking, you better have great conviction they're going to be a really good player. And we've spent a ton of time talking about this because now it's not just offering somebody a scholarship, right? It's an investment from a financial perspective, with rev share and with NIL, but also I think the opportunity for great depth on a team is tougher because people want a chance to play major minutes right away, or they want to see that path. This year we have 10 guys to play. We have other guys on scholarship that we've recruited to really help us in practice and will be ready in a pinch. But end of the day, once you start to have more, that can be a tougher thing. And so we spent a ton of time talking about this. From a basketball perspective, all the guys you mentioned, they had 2 things. They were big time competitors, big time. And how you define that, I think it's different for every coach. I think how you search for it, how you ask questions, how you watch. Smitty, you talk about the eye test. Well, part of that for me is the eye test. There's not an analytic tool I can go to at this moment where, man, he's 96 competitiveness, so that's a huge thing. The second thing is feel or IQ. You have to be able to think the game to be really good here. So the combination of those 2 things have really led to some special stuff happening. The third one for me, it's a little bit under the radar. It's not necessarily a skill on the court, but we've had great parents, great families, but the ones that have given the most independence while being strong and supportive have been our most successful guys. Because inevitably, I don't care who it is, all right, number 1 pick last year, Cooper. You don't think Cooper was down in the dumps after our Kentucky and Kansas game last year, or after Clemson, or after different moments where, of course he was. But the fact that Kelly and Ralph never questioned anything, always supported us in what we were doing, coaching, and they allowed Cooper to fail. They allowed him to have great moments, not get too high. He just had great independence and maturity. And that's not just him. That's Derek Lively. That's Jared McCain. That's Kyle Filipowski. That's Con Knipple, Kamal Malawatch, Tyrese Proctor, Sion James. I can go down the list. So that's something we value is letting these guys grow in college.
I wanted to mention I was in Charlotte sitting right behind you for 3 days in the ACC tournament, and even Coop's out. you know, Kelly and Ralph, everybody's right behind me, your mom and dad. They're leading the charge. Like, you know, they're not just here to cheer for their son. They're here to cheer for Duke. And I saw several times you turned around to get them going, and they got the crowd going. And how big is that to have that kind of support through, you know, the entire family, I guess?
It's huge. I mean, just, you know, our parents last year were spectacular. You know, you see them with the motherhood shirts, and, you know, shout out to the motherhood, you know, the fatherhood, you know, my brother-in-laws came out to me. They said they want brother-in-law hood shirt. I said, you're not as important as the motherhood, just so you know. But no, but cheering for each other's kids, like that stuff is contagious. It just is. It's contagious. And so once you feel that, you don't think our players felt that? Of course they did. And I don't think that's something to take for granted or just to assume that's always going to happen. But there was an amazing thing. When we came out for our first round game last year, we're leaving the hotel, and it was only the parents at that point, but they made a tunnel for our players. You know, they were out there just making a tunnel. And by the end of it, we're getting ready for the Elite Eight and the Final Four. And there was a ton of people there, you know, with us leaving the hotel. So the fact that it started with them was really special.
Circling back to the transfer portal, we talked about a little bit. You know, the season ends really quickly, but you've said publicly that the transfer portal kind of starts throughout the season. I mean, guys are getting approached and that kind of thing, but you guys really didn't go in earnest after anybody until after your season ended. You know, how difficult was that? And how do you do the legwork to find a Cedric Coward, to find a Dante? You know, it seems like a really truncated timetable that's not ideal, I would assume, from your position.
Yeah, it was crazy going through it because there were a few guys. Look, as a coaching staff, you know, it's my responsibility to make sure the coaches and our staff is up to date with who can go in the portal and have, you know, our ear to the ground, because, you know, in this world, if you wait until somebody goes in, well, you're too late. You know, you're too late. And so you have to understand the environment. So there are a couple of really good players that we would have had some interest in, maybe. But no way. I made a promise to this team. Like, I was going to be 100% in with them, coaching them, not worrying about anything else. So that was one. And then two, the toughest thing I think in the portal is when guys are going in that quickly and deciding that fast, is you're gauging the known versus the unknown. So here's a player that's in, and this is what it would take. This is what they're looking for from a role standpoint, from everything, and then hoping what else is going to come in the portal, what else is going to be an option. And by the way, you still don't know at that time who we have coming back. There's conversations you want to have with your own players, and that's the priority. So for me, I think a lot of, and I'm not judging any other program or whatever, but I think sometimes the reverse can be, you figure out the transfer portal and then your own team. For us, it's our own team. Here's what's happening. Our guys who have a chance to come back, let's dive in with them. And then you go into other options, transfer portal, finalizing what you need. But thankfully, you know, I think the last couple of years, I would just tell you guys, being patient has really paid off. That's how we ended up with Sion. It's how we ended up this past year with Dame, you know, by being really patient. So that's something in the future, it's going to continue to evolve, but that's something that I've really learned.
With Dame, you know, you guys first get Cedric Coward, knowing that he may go to the NBA. How does that dynamic work? Because, I mean, you know, Dame had a lot of high major offers.
He did. Yeah. Sorry, John. Go ahead.
No. It just seemed like he was about to commit to Kansas, it seemed like. And then all of a sudden, you know, you guys reach out to him. It just seems like as a coach, that's a tough balancing act, because and you even go back to the end of the season, you know, it's like you have heartbreak, and then, you know, to your own story, it's kind of like, hey, are you coming back next year, or we want you back? I mean, it seems like it's less than ideal.
Yeah, I'd be lying to you if I said it's ideal. I would, and it's not. But I think you're always calculating risk, right? And there are certain decisions that are worth a certain level of risk tolerance. But there's a balance to it, and it's not an exact science. I think it's more of an art form, right? And so the thing that I can tell you that's most important for me in those moments is dealing with transparency. And the thing I would tell you was Cedric Coward, his agent Todd Ramasar, his family. It was completely transparent every step of the way. Like there wasn't a surprise happening. And by the time we were involved with Ced, and I'm talking about in the next week or two, I mean, his thing had blown up even more that quickly. I mean, it escalated that fast. And then the same thing with Dame and his representation. And with Wasserman and Joe Smith and Tadas and those guys. I mean, they were very transparent. We were transparent with them, explaining our situation, and really to be able to work out with Ced, listen, we got to move on at a certain point. Told them that, and then told Dame, I know you're trying to make a decision. Think this would be a great spot for you, and can have more clarity for you really soon. And so just the fact that it worked out, you need a little bit of luck, but also the conversations, the background, and the transparency to me is the difference maker, at the end of the day. And thankfully, man, we got him because that's he's going to be, he's a key addition for us.
Mm. We're super excited for it. I think there's a lot of versatility here. Coach, I know we want to be mindful of your time here. So thanks again for coming on. We appreciate you. Again, obviously congrats on an historic season. I think that makes your is that 4 or 5 Final Fours for you at Duke? 1 as a player, 2 as an assistant coach, 1 as a head coach?
That's 4. That's 4.
Yeah. So you're getting up there. And we're hoping to get back. Obviously, next year being in Indianapolis has been a pretty special place for you, for Duke as well. We won't get into all of the play style stuff, because we kind of believe in a little bit of keeping our secrets too. So, folks, if you're looking forward to that, see us on November 4th, and hopefully we'll ask Texas what we look like on the court here. But again, Coach, appreciate you. Have a great summer. Hope the family's going well. If there's anything you want to plug, please go ahead and take the time to do that, and we'll get you out of here.
Well, I just want to thank all the fans, that listen, the support, the passion, everything that comes with that. I'm all for it. This is one of one. I can't be more excited for the future. I appreciate you guys for what you do. And here's to a special season this upcoming year. All right, let's go make it happen.
Yes, sir.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you, guys.
We appreciate you.
All right, take care. See you guys.
All right. Well, again, we'll thank Coach for coming on here for us very quickly, giving us some of his time here on a busy day. You get 45 minutes of Coach's time. You don't get that too often. John, thank you for setting this up for us. Fellas, before we kind of we can kind of process here a little bit. John, anything that Coach said that popped or stood out to you in that conversation?
I really thought it was interesting how he talked about how good Dame is going to be. I would have loved to dug a tad deeper, maybe asking him about, why Cedric Coward. But I think he talked about that at the beginning, talking about wanting experience. I know some of the conversations I've had offline that's why they scheduled like they did. I mean, this schedule is brutal.
I know I wanted to get in that a little bit, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's just brutal. And I mean, I can tell you some of the conversations I've had they want to grow up. They want to grow up soon. And it's really not it's not kind of a shot across the bow of the ACC, but it's just they've got bigger goals. And, Louisville's going to be really good. Virginia's going to be good. Carolina could be pretty solid. But after that, the league's not it's not what it was historically. And so they want to grow up. They want to grow up early, and they're going to put their guys in the situation to do that. So, there's going to be some lumps early on, I think, but I think they're pretty happy with how this team's going to go. So that popped out. I know I was harping on it a little bit when the questions I was asking, but I really think fans should appreciate how much of a human side there is to building rosters. We say it on the message boards all the time. It's not like 2K. That's coming from the source. I mean, it's just not. Agents, NIL, finances, fit, mom and dad wanting their little boy to go to or from college. There's so many variables. And so, I think the fans are really fortunate to have the kind of thoughtful and measured approach that coach uses. I think that stuck out, but I'd love to hear what you guys thought as well. I mean, third time on podcast. It's pretty cool to have that opportunity, I think.
Yeah, for sure. I love how kind of open he's been with the media so far. Just great to have that kind of access to him, and he's just really forthcoming in his answers. To come back to what you were saying, I think two things that jumped out to me were him talking about when they're scouting, looking at the parents. I thought that was really interesting. And then the other thing was him talking about how the conversations he's had with Isaiah Evans have been some of the best conversations he's ever had. So I think both those things kind of come back to the relationship aspect, right?
Yeah.
We've talked a lot in the past about like locker room cancers, right? Like a guy getting something in his head. Well, a lot of times that comes from his circle, his group, maybe not necessarily his family, but I mean, I know we've talked offline about some tough dads that we've had in the past, or tough moms in the past. So last year, again, just a breath of fresh air, that whole group, a family, like I said, every game I went to, they were just so supportive and the biggest cheerleaders for our program. So it's nice to have that kind of support around the guys.
I mean, look at Isaiah Evans. I mean, he got incredible offers. Once the season was ending, and let's be honest, I mean, coach even hinted at it. I mean, those offers weren't coming as soon as Duke's seasons ended. They were coming during the season. And to have that support system to essentially deflect and keep the noise out so that the kid could be coached, whether he was going to come back or not, the fact that the parents and the infrastructure was there to keep all the noise out, keep all the distractions out. I mean, same thing with Caleb Foster. Same thing with Darren Harris. I mean, really the same thing with Pat, because Malik Brown doesn't get hurt. Do we really think Pat plays as much as he did last year? I mean, and these are 5-star guys. I mean, it's really intricate with how much infrastructure they have and how much support they have. And I think if they didn't have it, you wouldn't have the level of success and the level of stability you have these days, which maybe it's not what it was, several decades ago, but it's pretty impressive what they've done.
Yeah. I mean, I think another thing too is like, just going from, the third time we've had it on and just seeing it across the board, there's just such a comfort level increase, I guess, right? Of just owning the position, owning the chair, owning the role, and just the intentional vision. I mean, we had him on, I wish we had a little bit more time to talk about from when we had him on last year. And we were talking about, is there pressure to create the perfect roster around Coop? Like, how do you see this playing out? And for it to just play out, like, I mean, you're one of 9 scenarios going differently away from just storybook almost.
Yep.
Right. You got to beat Florida, but you're right there. And you just see it all kind of like you laid it all out, and then for it to happen that way, I think that's cool to see. Go ahead, Rob.
No, I just think that there's a stronger sense of identity I felt from him every single year, right? Like where his stamp on the program becomes more and more distinct.
Yeah, well, he's been very direct and very confident in the last couple moves. I mean, it was everyone. I mean, I can't speak for you guys, but I thought it was pretty much a given that he was going to continue to hire out of the Coach K tree. And now it's not even a question. Like Tyler Thornton's a really good coach, but I mean, Evan Bradds just comes in. Coach Will retires. Doesn't even look within the tree. We're going to get the guy from Clemson because he's got those guys physically ready every year. It's kind of like he's figured out exactly what he wants and he's going to go get it. And he's done that with the roster. He's done that with the coaching staff. He's done that with a lot of the other decisions. To your point about roster building, I can tell you from conversations I've had, it is going to be built around Cam Boozer. I mean, it has to be. He may be ACC Player of the Year. I mean, he's, the expectation is he's going to be a lot like Paolo was, just production-wise. I think he's got. I think it's going to be very similar to the 2022 team where Cam can roll down to the 5 at times. But again, do you have a Wendell Moore? Well, that's a question. Is Dame Sarr going to be as good as Wendell Moore was? And
do you have a guard like who is capable of raising their play during the tournament the way Jeremy Roach did? I know that was a little bit unexpected that happened, but
they
that's
needed
that kind of X factor that we might need, in March.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's where the Caleb Foster comparison comes in, as a third, and what was that? Was that Roach's second? That was Roach's second year. Yeah. So, Foster's essentially had one, if you think about it, he's had one full year healthy and all that. Yeah. So maybe he's ready to take that spot in. And he does
that's a really good comp too. It's, Roach went through a lot of the same struggles Foster has. A really kind of inefficient, rocky first year, just so.
And a lot of a lot of the things we've heard from just the Brotherhood podcast, like I think Nick was talking about how vocal Caleb's been so far this summer. Like, so, maybe just easing into that role of being more of the leader. He's the veteran here. Him and Malik are the only two upperclassmen, right?
Unless we're counting sophomores, which I don't think we should. But.
Right.
Yeah. Maybe you do.
Maybe
you do count that. Yeah. Cam, I wish we could have got into a more nuanced conversation because you're right. You could insert Paolo, you could insert Bagley, you could insert Jaleel, Vernon Carey, just that kind of dominant big man who's going to be able. And I think an interesting thing to get into it with Coach at a certain point, maybe next year, is the passing on this team looks like it's going to be like a significant strength. All three of the bigs, and you got obviously Foster, Caden. I think it's going to be interesting is how do you coach aggressiveness? Like, are you going to have to kind of like go to the like K mentality a little bit and say like, hey, I need you.
Well, that's something I wanted to ask him actually about Cooper last year, right? Like it seems like he almost might have had to coach Cooper to take more shots, right?
Do more. Yeah, be more aggressive.
You might not have that same problem with Cam Boozer. It seems like he's a little bit more comfortable being the scorer, right? Now he's a great passer, but that might be a difference there.
Yeah, and he floats sometimes, but maybe not. Maybe I'm looking too much into it, but yeah.
No, he's going to be really, really good. I still think the biggest variables are obviously Foster. What are you going to get from Evans? Because he's a flamethrower, but is there a situation where Sarr becomes a better two guard and maybe like Nick becomes a guy at the small forward spot you really want to play because of his connectivity and what he does? Because we didn't even mention him, but he's super talented and they're very high on him. So what happens there, and what if anything do you get out of Darren Harris? There's a lot of interesting questions here, and then obviously with Caden. Do you want a traditional point guard? Do you need one?
That's interesting. Yeah.
Because, even last year, Khan could handle the ball. Coop could handle the ball. Sion could handle the ball. Tyrese. You had 4 ball handlers on the court at all times.
Yep.
Next year, Cam's not really a ball handler. Obviously, Caden could be. Foster can do it. He's played point guard before. I don't think Isaiah really is one. So Sarr is his handle's a little loose. So it's really interesting to see how the ball handling is going to work, because I agree the passing's great. You still got to have somebody who can handle the ball.
Yeah, it's a lot of stationary passing, right? It's a lot of kind of like bigs and then a bunch of cutting and operating. Even Malik, who's a savant, most of his stuff is catch,
high
turn,
post.
Face, kind of sending bullets around. Even Pat is kind of similar in those little cuts and stuff.
I wonder if we're going to see more kind of, this sounds negative, but I don't mean it that way, like walking the ball up the floor and then getting into half-court sets where we're running stuff from the high post versus kind of, a little more up and down, free-flowing thing that we saw towards the end of.
Horns. Time to bring back the patented horns that both bigs flare up and get into it.
Because that's one thing that, if you don't have that kind of primary ball handler, you can kind of mitigate that a little bit by playing more in the half court and running things out of the high post, stuff like that. So that's kind of what I see happening, at least. I imagine, by the end of last season, the tempo had really sped up. We were seeing more games at 70 possessions and stuff. I think it's going to be more closer to the previous 2 years.
A bit more methodical.
Pace.
Yeah. the roster seems to complement that a little bit more. And I to your point, John, one of the things we had on the outline that we didn't get into as much was Caden Boozer, and I think that could be its own podcast almost, because John didn't play that way. He hasn't typically kind of coached or recruited to say, you know, you're the guy, right? You're the cog, you're the key. Here, Tyus, take the reins. It has been much more distributed.
Well, that's why I asked him the question about the advantages of not running everything through one guy, right?
Right.
But it would have been interesting to
ball could be a good question. Yeah.
We've talked about it. I mean, I've talked about it back. I mean, going back into the summer when it was announced that Krzyzewski was retiring. You know, I kept asking about point guard play because you had a Tyus Jones, you had a Trey Jones, and since that, who's really been the point guard? I mean, Tyrese was supposed to be, and then just it turned into a 3-and-D guy. Caleb was the number one point guard in the country. He's probably more of a 3-and-D guy now, or a wing. And so, I mean, I've asked him over and over again about this, especially as, you know, when the recruiting conversations come up and all that kind of stuff. And they don't make a lot of Tyus Jones. They don't make a lot of Trey Jones. I mean, Caden Boozer probably is the best pure point guard they've recruited in a while. I mean, he's a top 3 or 4 point guard in this class. He just doesn't get the recognition because his brother is 8 inches taller and, you know, just an absolute cyborg when it comes to production. But one quote that has always stuck out to me, it was just a conversation we were having, and I said, you know, who's going to play point guard? And he goes, well, who played point guard on the 2010 team? And, you know,
it's like, well, you kind of, but
don't tell him kind of. He will tell you he played point guard.
Right.
But and in that situation, you know, you kind of look at it last year, it was similar to Khan. I mean, a shooter who could handle the ball and didn't make mistakes with the ball. More like a game manager than a dynamic Jay Will, Duhan, that kind of thing. So I think that's
the pure point guard. Sorry, the pure point guard is something that's kind of going out of style anyway. I was listening to an NBA pod the other day where they were talking about that you just don't get. I mean, you got Halliburton, but that's really about it when you think about it, right? Like, it's just all combo guards, and you really have to be able to score. Like, what were the criticisms of Halliburton, like during the finals and stuff? He needs to be more aggressive. He needs to score more, right? And so I think we've seen that reflected in the college ranks too, where you're just not getting that many kind of like Bobby Hurley, Kendall Marshall kind of types.
You look at this recruiting class, and they, you know, the kid out of Blair Academy, he's a Duke kid, Deron Rippey. He's a Duke kid, Blair Academy, point guard, super fast, gets to the rim, and Duke's, they're talking to him, but I don't think he's certainly not above Jordan Smith.
Right.
And Jordan Smith's more of a combo guard. I mean, I didn't love the comparison. I don't know if it was meant, but on the message boards, it was kind of like, you know, Jordan Smith is the Michael Jordan of Jordan Goldwires, which, if you think about, you know, super long, big wingspan, incredible defensive motor. He's probably a cross between Jordan Goldwire and DeMarcus Nelson.
I saw the Nelson thing a little bit.
And you can see that, and it's like, you know, Nelson was a much better scorer. I mean, he scored like 4,000 points or something.
He was like the leader in California, like high school.
I mean, I don't know. Yeah, he used to score like 35, 40 points a game. I mean, but, you know, they're not recruiting a pure point guard. Now, Caden is a pure point guard, and I think he's more of a game manager, but he's also shown that he can score. I mean, people talk about Cam, but, you know, in the national title game for the Chipotle Nationals, it was Caden who scored like 27 or 28 points. I mean, he can do it when he needs to. And to me, he's going to be the kind of kid as a junior and senior other teams are just going to hate because he's a super college point guard. You know, I think that's where they're going. But yeah, to your point, it's just, unless it's going to be a Tyus Jones or something similar, I just don't see that kind of player coming up.
Yeah, the narrative has shifted, right? Even coaches talking about like the emphasis on off ball. And I think when you look at point guards, part of that is like, okay, well, this kid has had the ball in his hand. He has been the decision maker for 4 years. What does my offense look like when you're not touching it? And
Right.
like, are you still able to be a complementary piece? Are you moving? Are you moving the defense without the ball? And if you can't, that's a hard thing to coach. Like I think it's hard to see guys just all of a sudden become great off-ball players where they're just instinctual and cutting and screening. And it can happen. It can be there. But I think it's, maybe it's a little bit for him or for just the way the game is of what do you do off ball, and then can we get you on ball more? Like, can we start to increase that part of your game versus the other way around, right? If like you're going to be the guy, and then once you give up the ball, you just go stand there and don't move. That doesn't work anymore.
One of the things I was thinking of when we were talking to John earlier about like scouting and recruiting, he talked about the competitive, there's no way to just measure competitiveness, but I think in a way there kind of is. Does this guy win? Does his teams win? Like,
sure.
The Boozers have won 4 state titles. That's all they do is win, right? Like
Nick too. Yeah.
Nick too.
We talked about Herminia has 3 gold medals.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think that's is that something specific we look for too? Not only do you play your ass off every minute that you're on the floor, but you do what it is, whatever it takes, whatever your role is. I just want to win. And I think that's a huge part to have, a skill, not necessarily to have in this program.
We can talk about it on another episode down the road, but I mean, I can tell you this recruiting class is going to be small. We're talking 2-3 guys, maybe, probably 3. And that's by design because, I think when you're building rosters, and we didn't really talk about this, but there's got to be two sets of guys, right? Because you can't do what they did last year every year. I mean, they were very fortunate that all the pieces hit last year.
Yeah.
I mean, but it was a house cleaning to build around Cooper. Well, Cam Boozer is in the same league as Cooper Flagg as far as production. He's a Paolo, he's a Zion, they're on that level. But coming in 2026 doesn't have that player. 2027 doesn't have that player.
Yeah.
So that's 2 years that you're going to have to rely on either international guys, which is a mixed bag, or
continuity, right?
You get continuity, and that's where we are at this point. And I think that's why, in a perfect world next year, Dame's gone. I assume Isaiah's gone. But after those two, and then obviously Cam Boozer's gone, and Malik is gone. So that's 4 guys. But then if you could keep a Big Pat and have him as a junior in the middle, then you've got Sebastian Wilkins and Herminia at the 3 and 4, and then you've got Caden Boozer ready to have the ball in his hands. Caleb Foster is a senior, and then you bring
Junior
in
Darren Harris, maybe if he's sticks around. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you've got him, maybe a Jordan Smith, and then you bring in a transfer portal shooting guard. That's a pretty old team, but a pretty good team. Looks a lot like Florida last year, honestly.
Yeah. The next 2 cycles are definitely going to be interesting in terms of like stud, star power, and you might just have to manufacture that internally.
And so that's the thing. It's really important for them to have the scouting, to have all that done, because there's not another Cooper, there's not a Cam in the next 2 classes. There's just not. Yeah. And so they're going to get back to more traditional, which is interesting with the new variables of NIL and finances and all that kind of stuff. So it's
we'll just take a truck to Slim's house and just convince him to be like, all right, as a junior, we're just giving you the full JJ treatment and we're just turning you into a star, and just come back and we'll just see this thing blow up. I think Coach got into a lot of good stuff. I really wish we could have got into there's so much you can really get into with him in terms of just the staff, the vision, and what everything's going to look like.
We could have talked a lot more about we could have talked a lot more about next year's team and just, the play style stuff that we barely dug into. And, there's just a lot to reflect on. So it was hard to look
coming off a massive season like that. You're not quite as ready to when we had him on last summer, it was after that Elite 8. I think everyone was very much kind of like, all right, licking our lips to like clean that plate and let's get into this. Like, let's get going.
And the whole roster was new, right? So there's not much to look back on.
Right. And this year there's still a little bit of like, no, I still want to have that awesome dominant team that just beat everybody by 30. Can we just go back to that a little bit first?
just to provide the listeners some context here. We had a chance to get him on a month ago. And I think we all as a group decided that let's kind of get away from everyone asking the same 5 questions.
Yeah.
Hey, what happened against Houston? I mean, it's like, let's get away from that. Let them get the guys in, let them see those guys, and let's go from there. I mean, and so that was a decision we made as a group, I thought, to do the right thing. And we can certainly get asked for some other personalities come in. I mean, I think maybe talking to, Dave Bradley, maybe see if we can get Tyler Thornton on, that might be interesting as well. I'd like to talk to Evan Brads if we could, just to figure out what from the NBA he brings, compare and contrast the Duke infrastructure versus a professional infrastructure, because you do hear about that from other programs.
Yeah.
So there's a lot. We probably get Jeff Goodman back on. A lot of things going on. So,
but we wanted to talk more about the response to Houston, I think, to your point, versus just like, how many times can you talk about like, well, you can't go back and change it. Right. Obviously, he can go back and analyze what went wrong, and you can talk about the process of it. But I do think that verbiage gets a little bit played out. And so we wanted to focus more on, okay, how do you take what you had, analyze what was working for you, and then what does it look like creating a new roster 24 hours later? I mean, we didn't even talk about the fact that you lose your basically associate head coach, assistant coach, like right as the tournament starts, right? Like you just lost Coop in the ACC tournament. So you're reintegrating Coop, you losing your defensive coordinator, and I don't want to call him that, but you're losing one of your defensive minded coaches. And all of this is happening in real time. And it's unfortunate that the last 2 Final Fours that we've have had staff stuff going on in the middle of it too. So that's just an unfortunate part of it here. But we did want to focus a little bit more on that direction, the intentionality. How do you maintain what made last season great, and do it a bit differently? And what is that going to look like? And so we were a bit intentional on trying to get that angle in there. You mentioned Dave Bradley before we get out of here. When it shouts to Dave, thanks for setting all this up. Dave looks great too. I know he's been going through some stuff, so good to see you kind of back in action there, Dave. And hopefully, we'll keep the momentum going. We'll have our part 3 of the summer preview coming up after this one. So then we'll get into the front court, which I think should be pretty interesting. We'll talk Malik and Pat and Cam and those guys and what they're going to bring to it. But fellas, anything y'all want to kind of plug, or any final parting shots here before we kind of wind this thing down?
I mean, do you think I should apologize for Ben and I going to the Final Four? Because apparently we're
you're cursed.
Luck.
I don't know, man. I didn't want to put too much pressure on it, but 2026 in Indy, got a boozer there. It maybe could line up for us, man. Maybe it could line up for us. So
I want to make some calls in Indianapolis and just get you banned from all the hotels there or something.
Yeah.
Well, didn't you have
no flight list?
Didn't you have like an incredible logistics challenge to get to San Antonio?
Yeah, did you have to find like Austin or drive from like Austin?
Yeah, I stayed in Austin because staying in San Antonio was almost out of the question by that time. And then when I got to the when we landed, they had gave my rental car away, so having a reservation for a rental car, I don't understand.
Didn't matter, apparently.
Yeah, what I even wasted that time for.
Best I can do the bus pass, man.
Yeah. So but hey, look, we had a great time in San Antonio. I just wish it, the last 2 minutes of being in that stadium would have been a little different, but it is what it is. You got to, as Josh and all of us have talked about, when you're, the level of fans, you gotta ride the highs and you got to feel the lows.
You got to be willing to eat it.
Yeah.
You got to be willing to eat it, man, to get there. And you can't have your heart ripped out if you're not there. Yeah, that's kind of the way I look at it. You got to get there to get beat. So
at this point, I'm looking forward. I've gotten mostly over it. If I think about it too hard, it's like, a little painful, but I'm excited about next year's team.
You keep knocking on the door, eventually it'll open, right? You just keep knocking on it. You just keep making it happen. I mean, it took K, we've all talked about that. It's very rare that you just walk into like a Kevin Ollie situation or something like that, where you just kind of walk in and like, here it is. And I think for Jon, it's more about not just opening the door, but like, what can I do to just knock it down? To like make this more like, to not just get there. Like, I want to live here, right? Like, I want like my own house here. I want to set up shop, real estate, insert metaphor. The vision's just bigger. I think when you hear him talk, when it's just bigger than just a one-off situation. So as a fan, that's exciting for me. So,
can I ask you guys, after having the draft, we had all 5 guys drafted. Did that change how you felt about how the way the season ended any?
No.
Not for me, man, because when I look back on it, it's just like we were the best team in the country. We just were. The analytics back that up. Now you don't win in a single game elimination, but it's just a one-off thing, man. It's you go back through those last 2.5 minutes or whatever, and you play that 2.5 minutes back 100 times, and I just think Duke wins 98 of them. And that's you walk into that, and it just happened. And to me, Florida was great. They were good. I watched that title game though, and I thought that we should have won the national championship still, which that part kind of sucks. But
I thought Houston was better than Florida.
Yeah, they did. They put a Duke kind of right. Like they collapsed and fell apart. They had that game. I mean, they were controlling that game.
Well, Florida had that kind of mojo all tournament, right? Of just coming back from deficits.
That Pacers barrage of just being able to kind of hit and in a single game thing, man.
And they did have the advantage of Walter Clayton. I think that was a big thing. Like, I kind of, looking back on it, I just wish almost that Duke had that kind of floor general just for those moments. If there had been a Tyus or Trey to kind of get us calm and collected in those moments. But
to get on a heater and just Kemba Walker takeover type situation.
But I think we've mentioned it, like the 1999 team was historically more dominant than this last team and didn't win the title. But the 2010 team did. 2015 team did, right? Like, sometimes you don't have to be the best team to win, and sometimes being the best team doesn't mean you win. That's just the nature of single elimination. So there's nothing to say that, Scheyer can't win one with an inferior team to last year's team.
Well, I still think if you look at his first year, I mean, the Tennessee loss, I mean, they don't get bullied in that game, who knows?
Right. Yeah, where does that team
poised to make a run? Yeah.
Yeah, they just won 10 in a row. Yeah.
I mean, if you look at Duke's 5 titles, I don't think they were the best team in 2015. That was Kentucky.
Yep.
I don't think they were the best team in 2010. That was Kentucky.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, and then 2001, they were the best team.
1992. Yeah.
Yeah. 2002, they were the best team, even though they lost in the Sweet 16 to Jared Jeffries. 92, they were the best team. 91, not even close.
Yep.
And
86, they were the best team, didn't win. So
correct. I mean, if Kyrie doesn't get hurt, I think that team goes undefeated. I will believe that till the day I die. Watching him taking Jacob Pullen's soul in Kansas City that year.
Yeah.
And then watching him come back and just eat Michigan State alive. It was just like, that was the best team in the country. And they, it just happens. I mean, Jack White doesn't, go missing middle of the season, and if they're the team that we saw against Kentucky Zion's year, I mean, the machine. It just the best team very rarely wins, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's just you got to have the right kind of formula. Even a team like 2020, who I know that tournament never happened, but that's a team where I think they had a shot. Man. They were playing well. They had the point guard big combo, the inside out game. You have some athleticism with Cassius out there. You just have to be the best team at that night, right? You just got to win that night. And so for me, no, it doesn't change it. Yeah, I still look back super fun. I wish that they had won the title just so that it gets like memorialized that way, right? Where it just never dies, where you never forget. But I think this team will live with 2004 as another Duke team that I just will always just love, right? And they didn't get it done. Fell apart against UConn. No one could touch Okafor. But that was just still that 04 and this team are very similar to me in just how much I loved them.
It's just it's rough, but it's one of the few things that still endures from college basketball that makes it so great. Because I mean, I can't wait for them to start going to best of threes or whatever, to squeeze out more money. I mean,
Yeah, if you want more money, do less teams and let's do more games with good teams. How about that?
Yeah.
Let's not bring 100 teams in. Let's just do maybe a series. That'd be cool. That'd be kind of crazy.
Yeah.
We wouldn't have some of those titles, but maybe we'd have some of the one like 99 wins. But maybe 2010 91 definitely doesn't.
I think
like you're not beating UNLV but once. That's all you get.
I think this coming year's team is going to be fun though. I think I do think they're going to lose more than 4 games. I think they're going to lose quite a few.
Schedule is just going to be
brutal.
Yeah,
it's brutal. But I think they're going to surprise the people who are underestimating them.
Yeah, for sure.
I think probably a 2 or 3 seed at the end of the year, and they're going to be someone no one wants to play.
Yeah, I could see them entering the tournament a little overlooked and then making a deep run. Simply just like with that schedule, you're probably going to have 6 or 7 losses. So you might not end up as a 1 seed.
I still want to know who's going to be the guy. Like last year, and he'd never answer it publicly. Part of me was kind of like, everyone knew the ball was going to Cooper. Everybody knew. But he was 0 for 4 when that happened. Maybe you use him as a decoy and have Khan, who is, he's going to make the right read. He's going to make the right decision.
And he's a 50, 40, 90 shooter, right? So
sure. Yeah. I mean,
you have that advantage too.
And at the end of the season, it was more like 60, 50, 95.
I know, it was crazy.
Absurd, yeah.
It kind of goes back to like the 2022 team. Mark Williams doesn't get in foul trouble. They run Carolina off the floor.
Yeah.
In this game, Malawatch doesn't just have his worst game in college with all the stuff going on off the court. Houston has nothing to do with him. They have no way to deal with him. But variables happen. I don't know. We could have a whole podcast on what ifs.
Yeah, I do like that point though, because that's something where if we were ever to get Evan Brads on, I would love to have like a full conversation about the importance of just running your normal offense in those late game situations, and like how much pressure and just kind of like gall do you have to say, no, we're going to run our stuff. Like you have Coop sitting there, generational number 1 pick. I think, you got to give this guy the ball, right? But I think we've seen a little bit with OKC and Indiana last year we saw it with Alabama. Now we crushed Alabama, but they were good about being able to still run our normal stuff. Get like maybe Mark takes the shot, but it's got to come in our normal kind of flow versus like, hey, we're going away from it and we're going to call a set for this guy.
My only thing with Cooper was people were calling him generational, this, that, and the other. To me, he's Scottie Pippen. Like, he's a guy who's just going to be really, really good. Is he ever going to be that top end 25 to 30 point a night guy? I don't think so, because I think he's going to, instead of getting that, he's going to have a bunch of assists. He's going to have a bunch of rebounds, steals, and blocks. I mean, he's going to impact the game that way. And part of me wonders again, would it have been nicer to have a guy on the wing shooting? I mean, it's all hindsight, but like I said, it all would have been avoided had Tyrese had he been the guy who actually wanted to step to the line and hit free throws.
I know. Yeah. Seeing gets the ball area, all of the things, right?
Yep.
All of the things again. Yeah.
I was pulling up the last month of stats for a couple different players, and Cooper during that last month shot 93% from the line. So did Khan, right? And it's like, how did Tyrese end up with the ball in that situation? But I guess
who took out? Was it Sion who took the ball out, or was it Cooper who took the ball out?
I don't think it was Cooper, because Cooper was available to pass to. I remember
Cooper was coming up his left flank, and he was there, and
they had everybody on Khan.
Yeah. And he intentionally kind of just kept it and took it, which, I mean, I get it. I get wanting to do that. But I mean, Coop was sitting right there 91% from the line, man.
And he
wants the ball. And he's taken that ball and he's taken that shot in those type. Now Notre Dame isn't Houston, but he's had the ball, or Arizona, at the line in those moments. It's the pedigree. It's all there.
I still go back to when I was a kid and after Duke won 92 or 91, I guess it was. And the old VHS, it was Duke is King. And it's got CBS put it out. And one of the things I'll always remember, I can hear Krzyzewski's voice in my head talking about Leitner when he got fouled against UNLV. And
He's like, "I got
in the
these."
huddle, yep, he's in the huddle, and Krzyzewski goes, when he makes both of these, and then he comes on the voice overlay and just says he wanted to shoot those free throws. And I go back to Tyrese had no desire to be anywhere within 200 miles of that free throw line, and you could see it when he stepped up.
I know.
I mean, you could just see his body language.
I know. And then the over the back that gets called there too. It's just, and of course their 58% free throw shooter hits both.
Of course, yeah, and
of course,
doesn't even hit the rim. It's just
it's just that I couldn't have. It's still, you go back and watch that sequence and you'll just be in shock, just like how does this happen? But either way, we'll get out of here. Again, Jon, thanks for setting this up. It's obviously, the third time we were able to have Coach on. Hopefully we can continue this every off season and he doesn't get too big for us. And for Coach, obviously coming off a Final Four, we know you got a lot of media stuff going on, a lot of things on his plate. Obviously conversations never end. He's having these conversations probably on the plane back from San Antonio. So for him to take 45, almost an hour of his time to come chat it up with us, we appreciate that as well. For y'all, Jon, do you want to take a second, plug anything going on site wise? I got recruiting stuff coming up, Peach Jam, all that stuff just happened. 2026 class is probably going to start to get some attention now. What's kind of in the future over there?
Yeah, we're working on recruiting. It's a small group, working on recaps and all that kind of stuff. We're just we've got some stuff coming that we can't really talk about right now, but we'll get into it in the next couple months probably. But recruiting class is going to probably shape up by November. We'll be on top of that, and then we'll start looking at 2027. And really, football season's coming up, so we've got that. So it's same thing as it always is, just trying to figure it out. It's weird now because recruiting classes, they take so much longer to develop because there are so many more variables with agents, NIL, financial, all that kind of stuff. Figuring out who's going to come back. It's just a more delayed process than it used to be. But, we try to cover as best we can, and appreciate everybody, being along for the ride. And
even like Coach said, like you have to be doing this stuff before, you're sitting there in January, like, hey, do I want to devote the next 3.5 months to this high school kid? Or like, is this guy over here, could he potentially go up into the portal? And do I want to and you're just kind of going through and like, it's, you mentioned not being ideal. I do not envy kind of going through that process.
Well, we can do it on another episode. We can have a behind the scenes of what the transfer portal was really like this year. I was trying to get him to talk a little bit about it because, if you see the public perception, message boards, Twitter, people who they're not really following it all that close, they have no idea how it went. It's so-and-so's in the portal. Duke should go get him. And it's like, they can't. And here's why.
Right. Yeah. So many kind of window shoppers and things get attached to Duke, and just it's
or just like, believe me, they've already vetted this guy. They've already talked to this guy. They've already reached out.
By the time it gets on your table, it's been on his for about at least 48 hours, probably, right?
Oh,
so
if not a lot more. Yeah,
Well, he was saying in another interview that he knew that Coward was going to the NBA for weeks before it was announced, right?
Yeah. And just had to say, we'll support you, we'll stand by you, but I got a job to do too. I got a responsibility too. Yeah.
That's why we talked. That's why I wanted to get that in at the very end of the interview, just where it's kind of like, hey, you took Cedric Coward first, and it was not, you could never get both of them. I mean, they just couldn't. Finances, roles, players wanting to come. You're never going to get both. And so they made the decision to take Cedric Coward over Dame Sarr. And they made that decision, but they also had to keep it, as we reported on the boards, they had to keep it lines of communication open because of, the possibility that Coward was going to go. And like you heard him say, Coward starts really blowing up. And at that point, Duke has to kind of go, look, your ultimate goal is to get to the NBA. We understand that. We support that. We want that for you. But here's where we are, and we can't be left in the lurch. And, and so that's I thought he did a good job addressing that. But if you,
I wonder if there's any carryover, Jon, from like the Trevor Kuehl situation where it seemed to kind of we're waiting, and then it's like the loyalty, and now it's like, okay, you know what? Maybe I can be loyal
but
show it a little differently.
But Trevor Keels wasn't, again, it's you got to be careful of the narratives of people who aren't talking to the actual principals because, like we kept saying, they're going to always default to giving their guys the benefit of the doubt. And Trevor Keels, as it's proven over the last 3 years, had no business going to the NBA that year. He just didn't. He wasn't ready. And he made the decision. That's fine. But, Duke had Tyrese Proctor waiting in the wings. So, it's not like they were just scrambling. Now, that might be how it looks, but they had already talked to Proctor. They knew he could reclassify. They knew what he was doing. And so, they had a plan there. I mean, this year they had Dame Sarr. They talked to him. They were working on him. I mean, one of the kids I know they were talking about, he mentioned kids who were really good who they were looking at was the kid who ended up at UConn from Georgia. I mean, Silas Demary. Yeah. And so that was a 1-to-1 for Sion. I mean, perfect fit. But, the kid, and people were like, well, they didn't get involved. He literally shares an agent with Jon Scheyer. So it's like, they knew about him, but, as we kept saying on the boards, Duke's not going to get involved until the season's over. They're just not. And so people might go, well, why wouldn't they do that? Because they're trying to get a Final Four, trying to get to a national title game. They got 2 kids in Caleb Foster and Isaiah Evans who would be totally impacted by bringing in a kid from Georgia. I mean, totally impacted.
Yeah.
You don't think it's going to be noticed that, hey, I promised you that we're not even going to talk. We're all in on this season. We're all in on this season. Oh, yeah, by the way, we took a commitment from this transfer portal kid from Georgia who actually plays the same position you do for next season. You don't think that's going to screw up your team chemistry going into the Final Four? It's not worth it. I think that's what he was talking about with, calculated risks and all that kind of thing. And then had the Georgia kid wanted to wait until after the season, great. But UConn came with a super package. They came with a great role, and not like he went to Southwest Missouri State or something. He went to UConn. I mean, good on him.
Yeah.
But
and they had 2 weeks of advanced kind of time too, right?
Exactly.
Like UConn was out of the tournament week 1. I watched them lose. They should have beat Florida, to be honest.
But look at exactly. But look at the year before where Duke's out early, and all of a sudden they're out, and before the national title game's over, they've already got Malik Brown coming, and they've already made inroads with Mason Gillis.
Yeah.
And then the third one, Sion. They'd already made inroads with him, but Sion was going through the NBA draft process. Part of the vetting was making sure that go ahead and go to the NBA draft process. We know you're not going to get drafted. But if you come to Duke and you perform, you will get drafted. So, if you meet your side of the bargain. And so they could wait on him. And of course, the people who aren't following it are going, well, what is he doing? What is he doing? He only got 2 post players. He doesn't have anybody. And then all of a sudden, Sion comes in at the very end, and it's like, there is a plan. But again, it's, there's so many variables, and so it's difficult. It's difficult for us to track. It's difficult for them to live, I'm sure.
It's too layered. Yeah, it's too layered to probably even get into all of it here. But either way, we appreciate it. We appreciate you for setting it up, John, and obviously we appreciate Coach's time and getting into 100%. This, and we look forward to it every year. And then now we get to spend the next few months kind of overanalyzing this stuff even more, which is always fun for us to do. And John, you mentioned some guests kind of lined up. We're still working on a few others as well, trying to get some guys on here for you all. But in the meantime, you can now see us on YouTube if you're watching us live here over at TheDevilsDen.com. Anywhere you listen to podcasts, you can find us in your feeds. You can email us at TheDevilsDenPod@gmail.com. You can find us on X/Twitter at DevilsDenPod247. And keep the faces